The wedding was the kind that only the ultra-wealthy could imagine, held at an exclusive seaside estate with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and walls draped in imported white roses. Music from a live orchestra floated in the air, as waiters, in white gloves, passed trays of champagne and gold-leafed hors d'oeuvres. Every guest was dressed like royalty, their laughter echoing through the grand hall like a carefully orchestrated performance. In the middle of all this splendor, tucked away near the back, sat a young girl in a custom-designed lavender gown. Her dark brown hair was curled loosely around her shoulders, and small diamond clips shimmered as she moved slightly in her wheelchair. She had an elegance about her, but her eyes gave her away, quiet, distant, watching. This was Isla Kingsley, daughter of the powerful billionaire CEO Arthur Kingsley. Everyone knew the story, how 2 years ago, a freak car accident had left her paralyzed from the waist down. There had been headlines, tabloid whispers, even public sympathy campaigns. But now, with the glamour of the wedding taking center stage, Isla had become an afterthought, a symbol of tragedy people no longer had patience for. Despite being family. She had been seated near a decorative floral arrangement in a corner, far from the dance floor, and even farther from the spotlight. Guests passed her without a glance. Some gave a polite smile, before turning back to their conversations, careful not to linger. A few children had glanced at her curiously, but were quickly pulled away by their parents. Not a single person had invited her to dance, or included her in a conversation. Even her own father hadn't come to her yet. Arthur Kingsley, the towering man in a black tuxedo, was busy socializing with foreign investors and journalists. He clinked glasses with business elites, laughing loudly, speaking about stock prices and legacy. It was easier for him to be a CEO here than a father. Isla shifted slightly in her chair and looked down at her hands resting in her lap. Her dress was beautiful. She had chosen it herself, but no one had noticed. The soft, classical music from the orchestra only made her feel more isolated, as if the melody belonged to a world she could no longer access. She looked around, scanning the faces for someone, anyone, who might see her, not just see her wheelchair, or remember the accident, but see her. But all the eyes in the room were drawn to the bride's gown, the luxury decor, the elite guests posing for photos. Her heart sank down just as she was reaching for a napkin to dab at the tears she refused to let fall. A sudden burst of laughter came near her, loud and full of life. A small boy, around 6, darted past her chair, nearly bumping into her. He had a crooked body, one shoelace undone, and was gripping a half-eaten cookie in his hand. Startled, Isla looked at him. The boy stopped, wide-eyed, staring at her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, he did something different. He smiled. "Hi," he said cheerfully. Isla blinked. "Hi." Before she could say more, a tall man hurried after the boy. He was clearly not one of the glittering elite. His suit was clean but modest, his shoes slightly scuffed from long hours on his feet. He looked like someone who worked here, not someone who was invited. The man caught up with the boy, and let out a relieved sigh. "Liam, you can't just take off like that." The boy looked up at him. "She looked lonely," he said simply. The man turned his gaze to Isla, really looked at her, and the smile on his face softened. Unlike the others, he didn't look past her, or through her. He crouched slightly, getting on her level. "Hey," he said gently. "You doing okay?" Isla was stunned for a moment. No one had spoken to her like that all evening, no careful pity, no cold politeness. Just a simple, human question. "I'm fine," she said after a pause. "Just enjoying the view." The man chuckled, glancing around at the extravagance. "Yeah, a whole lot of sparkle, not much soul." He extended his hand. "I'm Daniel. This little storm is my son Liam. I'm one of the photographers tonight." Asterisk, she took his hand briefly. Isla. Asterisk, Daniel tilted his head slightly. Isla. Kingsley. She nodded, expecting the usual awkwardness that followed, but Daniel simply smiled again. Nice to meet you, Isla, Kingsley. So, why is someone like you sitting here all alone? Asterisk, the question stunned her more than anything else that night. Not because it was rude, but because it was the first time someone had noticed, asterisk, and for the first time that evening. Isla felt something stir in her chest, a small flicker of warmth, where only cold silence had lived. Asterisk, she wasn't invisible. Anymore, not to him. Daniel gently wheeled Isla out to the open-air terrace just beyond the ballroom. The noise of clinking glasses, laughter, and classical music faded behind them. Outside, the evening was wrapped in golden string lights, their glow soft and inviting. The stars above the ocean shimmered quietly, untouched by the chaos of the party inside. Asterisk, Isla inhaled deeply. It's quiet out here. Asterisk, Daniel took a seat on the stone bench next to her, his young son Liam sitting cross-legged at his feet, nibbling on a cookie and watching a bug crawl across the floor like it was a show. Asterisk, I figured you might need some air, Daniel said. Too many people pretending to care in there. Asterisk. She glanced at him sharply, surprised by his bluntness, but found herself smirking. You're not like the others. Asterisk, is that a compliment? Asterisk, it is tonight. Asterisk, they sat for a moment in silence. The ocean breeze fluttered the edges of Isla's silk dress, and she pushed a strand of hair behind her ear. Asterisk, they only see the chair, she said suddenly, not me. Asterisk, Daniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I know what that feels like. She turned to him, surprised again. My wife passed away when Liam was a baby, he explained, his voice lower now, more serious. Cancer. Quick. Brutal. After she was gone, everyone pitied me, said the usual things. You're so strong, she's in a better place, but they didn't really see me. Most people just don't know what to do with broken things. Asterisk, Il's voice was almost a whisper. But I'm not broken. Asterisk, I know, Daniel replied without hesitation. But they don't. Asterisk, she stared at the sea, blinking away a burn in her eyes. My dad, he stopped looking at me the same way after the accident. Like I'm some kind of reminder of a failure he can't fix. He sends flowers, plans, surgeries, but he won't even sit next to me in public. Asterisk, Daniel shook his head. He's a man who probably believes control equals love. When he couldn't control what happened to you, he thought stepping back would hurt less. Asterisk, Isla bit her lip. But it still hurts. Asterisk, I know, he said quietly. That's why I brought you out here. You needed someone who doesn't flinch when they see the chair. Asterisk, she glanced sideways at him. You really don't care about it, do you? Asterisk, Daniel smiled. I care about the girl in the chair. You're smart, funny, sharp-eyed. You've got more soul than the rest of that ballroom combined. Asterisk, for a moment. Isla couldn't breathe. His words felt so honest, so simple, yet so radical, like someone had finally cracked open a window in a room she'd been locked in for years. Asterisk, from below. Liam tugged on her dress lightly. Do you know how to dance? He asked innocently. Asterisk, Isla gave a sad smile. Not anymore. Asterisk, Daniel stood up and held out his hand. Wanna bet? Asterisk, she blinked. There's no music. Asterisk, he shrugged with a grin. Then let's make some of our own. Asterisk, before she could protest, he gently took the handles of her wheelchair and guided her slowly onto the terrace's open stone floor. With surprising grace, he spun her gently, using the chair like it was part of a ballroom waltz. Isla let out a shocked laugh. See, he said, grinning. Told you could still dance. Asterisk, she laughed again, fuller this time, her head tilted back under the fairy lights. Her heart doing something it hadn't done in a long time. It soared, and then something happened. Asterisk, from inside the ballroom, The music changed. Soft jazz began to drift outside. A few guests gathered near the doorway, watching in curiosity as Daniel twirled Isla again. But for her, there was no audience. There was no chair. There was no ballroom. No wedding. No pity. There was just her. And him. And the stars above. For the first time in years, she wasn't a burden. Under the warm glow of string lights. With the sea breeze gently brushing her face, Illa spun in her wheelchair, not by accident, not out of necessity, but as part of a dance. Daniel held her hands as he guided her chair in rhythm with the soft jazz playing from inside. His steps were light, almost playful, and he moved with an easy grace that made Isla feel like she was floating. For so long, she had been stuck on the sidelines, seen only as someone who used to dance, someone who used to shine, but not tonight. Tonight, she was the center of something, not because people felt sorry for her, but because someone actually saw her. People began to gather inside the ballroom's tall glass doors, staring in disbelief. The whispers started again, but this time, they weren't cruel. They were stunned. "She's smiling," someone said. "That's Arthur Kingsley's daughter, right?" Is that the photographer dancing with her? The bride and groom paused their waltz. The orchestra faltered slightly, then shifted to match the tempo of the music coming from the terrace. The mood shifted slowly, like a ripple through the crowd. Inside, standing near the back of the room, Arthur Kingsley held a glass of scotch. His posture stiffened when he noticed the small crowd near the windows.